I have thought a lot about not only this subject, but endless debates that have been going on with increasing rapidity and complexity in Washington about the conflicts between rewarding creativity and spreading its benefits, about the need to give people an appropriate return on their ideas and the development of it and the presentation of it in film and music and any other area, and the need to give it as quickly as possible to the world.
We know that what has been a big spur to Americans' creativity is, of course, the creativity from all of our people that comes up from our streets and comes out of our universities and film areas, but it's really immigration that has fueled this, and the ability to attract great and creative people in all forms of endeavor, from arts and culture, science and technology, and making sure that we don't just think of creativity as something that comes out from on high. I think really one of the amazing things is how America has been able to mobilize street-level creativity. You know, the whole thing that so many of our creative people didn't finish college. Many of them come from neighborhoods like New Orleans or parts of New York City or any of our great cities, Detroit. I think making direct investments, empowering our cities, and keeping our country open doors are the three things that we're doing. And I think Canada has done a really good job in encouraging this recently, Australia and New Zealand, but there are not a lot of countries around the world that have really been open to encouraging people, and not just so-called high-skill immigrants, but people like my grandparents who came from Italy, all of the people who come here to kind of find a dream, and that spurs creativity. And I think government should remain open, not only invest in creativity, but keep our doors open to creativity around the world. What I really like, and why I like having to be able to dialogue with somebody like Ted, is when you look at creative people from these domains. My own estimate is that there are 40 million people who use their creativity on the job. They generate $2 trillion in economic wealth through wages and salaries. They power growth of our economy from arts and culture, science and technology. But this idea about creating a new American dream around building your own company, whether that's Microsoft or Apple, but whether that's LeBron James or Dwayne Wade, and you go on, or Carmelo Anthony or other athletes, Jay-Z. There's a young woman we just read about today who has a course in Harvard looking at creative people, but it's matching that creative skill, which I think everyone has, with the ability to make that an economic impact. And if you look at great creatives, they're often paired with someone who helps them turn that creativity into a business. And I think mechanisms to help us do that, to add management skill and business skill right in our schools, to train young people that it's not just enough to have a great creative talent. You have to find an economic, entrepreneurial way to challenge that, and that means a team. I think those are the things we can do to boost it.
Steve Jobs is very creative. Wozniak is a great engineer, and if you have creativity without pairing it with the engineering. And when I asked Steve Jobs at the very end of his life, what is the thing you felt was the most creative thing you did? And I thought it might be the iPod, the iPhone, whatever. He said, no, it was creating Apple, because creating a product or some new idea is pretty hard. But creating a team that will continually create those, that's the most creative thing you can do.
How would you define creativity?
I think creativity is, the catapult, the idea. All of a sudden the light bulb goes off, and you create the idea, and then creativity becomes, in my industry, teamwork. Because everybody in my industry brings something to the equation. It's not like painting, and it's not like writing a novel. When you make a movie, your production designer has to be creative. Your costume designer has to be creative. I'll give you an example. I made Shakespeare in Love. We talked about that and won the Oscar. Sandy Powell also won the Academy Award as the costume designer. And I had one instruction to her. I said, for God's sakes, do not put Shakespeare in tights. And don't put any of these other guys in tights. So she developed a pantsuit, you know, and if you watch the movie, it's very masculine, you know, you know, and everybody wears it. So based on that, you know, note of direction, her creativity was designing something that wasn't the way they dressed, but wasn't the way they didn't dress. So she absolutely captured the time so much so that she won the Oscar. So that was her creativity. And then the cameraman is his creativity, and then the music, and the director, and the actors, and, you know, so when you make a movie, it's, you know, the light bulb starts with the writer, I mean, with the script, or somebody has an idea, and then we go to a writer, but everybody brings their creativity to the process, and it's the director, you know, and the producer, you know what I mean, who monitor, you know, I mean, that process.
So
So, we got a lot to learn, and the creators have to lead us there. But all of you who think of yourself as being part of the creative class, remember that in the end, how you're treated by the rest of the private economy, what you do to empower a vital citizen service sector, and how you relate to the government will be determined by a unique kind of creativity, the kind Wilson laws in his book, creative cooperation. So one thing that will not change, I think, is that the future will reward more richly those who are both creative and cooperative. And we're all going to have to be curious for our lifetimes, because none of us are going to know enough to make good decisions.